The evening air was soft with the weight of summer dust, a gold haze lingering between the pines as if the day were reluctant to surrender its last warmth. Caleb Rourke rode slow along the narrowing trail, his horse's hooves pressing into earth that still remembered rain from nights past. He was a man of 30, shoulders broad from years of labor, yet his face carried the hush of grief, a quietness deeper than solitude, carved into the lines around his eyes. His wife had been gone for 2 winters now, claimed by fever that no doctor could wrestle from her. The cabin they had built together stood on the edge of his land, but to him it felt hollow, a place more haunted than home. He did not speak much these days, yet sometimes when twilight folded the world in silence, he found himself murmuring words into the empty air, as though someone might answer back. It was then he heard it, the faint cry, fragile as a bird call but heavy with human pain. He froze in the saddle, his breath caught against his chest. Again it came, a low moan drifting from the trees. Instinct pulled him forward. He dismounted, boots crunching against pine needles, each step tentative, wary as if the forest might be guarding a secret he was not meant to know. The sound led him deeper until he saw her. A woman lay collapsed near the roots of a cottonwood, her dress torn, the earth beneath her darkened with blood. Her skin bore the sun's bronze, her hair long and black, tangled with leaves and dirt. Her eyes flickered open at his approach, sharp even in weakness, and he saw mistrust burn there, mistrust born of long hardship and betrayal. Caleb knelt, unsure whether to move closer. "Easy," he whispered, his voice almost apologetic. "You're not alone anymore." She tried to shift away, but the wound on her side forced a gasp through her lips. Caleb hesitated only a breath longer before sliding his arms beneath her, lifting her as gently as he could. She was lighter than he expected, her frame fragile, yet she stiffened in his grasp as though bracing against a world that had given her little kindness. He carried her through the woods, his horse trailing behind, until the cabin's lantern glow rose out of the dusk like a promise he wasn't sure he could keep. Inside, the air smelled faintly of smoke and pine resin. Shadows licked the walls as Caleb set her upon the narrow bed he had not touched since his wife's passing. He found water, a rag, a strip of cloth for bandaging. His hands were steady from years of ranch work, yet tonight they trembled as he pressed fabric to her wound. She winced but did not cry out. Her silence was heavy, sharper than any words might have been. "Name's Caleb," he said after a time, voice rough from disuse. She gave no answer, only stared at him with eyes that seemed to measure his soul against the weight of the world. For the first time in 2 years he felt judged not by memory but by the living. He wondered if he had the right to save her when he had failed to save the one who mattered most. That thought kept him wakeful long after the lamplight dimmed. The days that followed moved in slow rhythm, measured by her breathing, her recovery, and the silence between them. She ate little at first, only the broth he coaxed her into drinking, but gradually she managed cornbread, stew, and water from a tin cup. When at last she spoke, her voice was low, soft, edged with sorrow. "Ayana," she said. Her name, nothing more. He repeated it under his breath, the syllables foreign yet strangely grounding, as though naming her gave shape to something long adrift in him. In time, fragments of her story slipped through, her husband gone, lost to hunger and violence. Her people scattered, some vanished, some swallowed by the edges of a world that no longer made room for them. A widow like him, though her grief had been sharpened not only by loss but by abandonment, by the cruelty of neighbors and kin who turned her away. Caleb listened, though words caught in his throat when he tried to offer comfort. Perhaps she did not need comfort. Perhaps all she needed was space to breathe without fear. And yet the world outside did not forgive easily. Whispers began to circle among ranch hands and in the nearby town, rumors of the widower keeping company with a native woman under his roof. Caleb felt the eyes on him as he bought flour and salt, the mutters behind his back sharp enough to cut. Ayana felt it too. Her posture folded inward, her hands trembling when she walked beside him. Shame, unearned yet merciless, bent her shoulders like a burden of stone. Caleb had no grand speeches. Instead, he shifted closer, carrying the basket himself, his silent presence a shield. In the dim lantern-lit aisles of the mercantile, he caught her glance, wary, grateful, uncertain. And in that moment he realized that strength did not always roar. Sometimes it was nothing more than the quiet choice to stand beside someone the world wanted you to leave behind. At the cabin she began to leave her mark. She fed the chickens, swept the floor, mended torn shirts with nimble fingers. She hummed sometimes, low and melodic, songs that belonged to a world beyond his understanding yet soothed him more than silence ever had. He found himself watching, not with hunger but with a tenderness that startled him. One evening as dusk bled violet across the horizon, she laid a hand on his arm in thanks. The touch was light, brief, yet it lingered in his skin like fire. Memories of his wife rose, sudden and raw, but they did not ache the same way. This was something different, alive, present, a fragile beginning he did not dare name. But peace is never left untested. One afternoon, the crunch of hooves echoed down the trail, and a small group of townsmen rode up, their faces grim with anger. Rifles slung across their saddles, words sharp as barbed wire, they demanded that Caleb send her away. Ayanna heard their voices from inside, her body trembling as though the world was closing in again. Caleb stood on the porch, his heart pounding. Fear pressed into his ribs, yet so did defiance. For a moment he thought of giving in, of retreating to the safety of solitude. But then he saw her shadow through the curtain, saw her hand clutching the windowsill as if to hold herself upright. He could not abandon her to silence again. "She stays," he said, voice low but unyielding. The men spat curses, muttered threats, and rode off, but Caleb knew their scorn would echo louder than gunfire. That night, Ayanna tried to slip away. He found her at the door, moonlight silvering the tears on her face. Her whisper was jagged. She was nothing but trouble, she could not bring more ruin upon him. He answered with words heavier than stone. Her life mattered more than what others thought. Their argument frayed into silence, two figures poised on the threshold of loss. Then he did what he had not dared. He reached for her hand. They stood, pulse against pulse, saying nothing yet neither willing to let go. It was not survival alone that bound them in that moment, but the first flicker of something fiercer. Days turned into weeks. The bond between them deepened not through declarations but through the small fabric of shared life. They mended fences together, split firewood, shared quiet laughter by firelight when the world outside grew too loud. One morning she set a woven necklace around his neck, her silent vow that she was no longer drifting. Caleb did not speak of love, perhaps the word was too fragile, too scarred by memory, but he asked her to stay, not as guest but as partner, as the rhythm of his days and nights. And so it was that at dusk, when the horizon burned gold and the cicadas hummed their eternal hymn, they sat side by side on the porch. Her hand found his, steady and sure. The past still lived in both of them, but its weight was softened by the presence of the other. Caleb turned, his voice little more than breath, yet truer than anything he had spoken in years. "You're not alone anymore." The words drifted into the evening air, caught between pine and sky, and for the first time since loss hollowed him, Caleb felt the truth of them. For the first time since exile bent her shoulders, Ayanna felt them too. And as night descended, a quiet understanding settled over the cabin, that even in a land as wild and merciless as this, two broken hearts could find their way back, not by thunderous passion, but by the soft endurance of choosing, again and again, not to let go.